Now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is new UNC defensive coordinator and friend of the show, Geoff Collins. Geoff, this is my first look at you in the non-photoshopped Carolina blue. I gotta say, seeing the image,
Yeah,
but I gotta say, even though you're not rocking the SDS hat like you had last time,
sure.
it feels right. It looks right with you in it. That's the best thing I can say about a new coach in his new colors is that it just
Sure.
kind of feels right.
Yeah, that means a lot. It's very interesting, the outpouring of support and congrats and love from buddies from young and old that I played with or have coached with in the past, and friends and family that were so excited about this opportunity for me, and I'm excited too.
I got a lot I want to discuss with you, but take me into this process because it's extremely unique. Where you had your first year away from coaching since you started in this profession 30
Sure.
years ago, and I know you watched a ton of football in the man
Right.
cave, and you were super dialed in. You knew that you wanted to get back into the coaching, but it had to be the right opportunity. Take our
Right.
listeners into what a typical fall day would look like, and it could be Saturday or Thursday, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Sure. Well, one of the biggest pieces is a year ago this time, I was presented with a lot of opportunities. My first time, out of it, and it just didn't feel like the right time a year ago. There were still some guys and some ladies that had been on my staff that I needed to help find spots. So I was worried about them more than I was worried about me. And then got to spend a ton of time with my wife and daughter this past year. But I didn't really know that I was 100% getting back in until the opening weekend of college football season 2023. My wife and I went to support Jim McElwain, Central Michigan Chippewas, open on a Friday night at Sparty up in East Lansing. And then the next day we went to the big house to watch East Carolina play Michigan. And, my wife looked at me during pregame warmups. We're on the sideline, and I'm watching the eventual national champions in pregame warmups, and she looked at me like, "Okay, we're probably getting back in this thing." And but what I did in the off season was watch a ton of tape, did some consulting work, did some media stuff. But after I dropped my daughter off at school in the morning, I would go back to the man cave and either hop on the Peloton and watch games, or just, I had some friends that gave me access to Catapult, which has the entire film library. So I would just watch games probably about 8 to 10 hours a day. And, it was a really good experience.
Did you have anything you learned doing that, like that you saw on film that like when you're a head coach and you're just kind of in it and you're so consumed by so many other different things, but like one thing that you saw during those moments where you're like, oh gosh, like this had been something that had just kind of passed me by, or for whatever reason just kind of stood out to you where you had this like aha moment?
Well, one of the biggest things is just, you sit down in your man cave and you're away from the game for the first time in forever. And you kind of, go through the process of what your identity is now that you're not in it. And the piece that I enjoyed being a head coach, was a head coach at two different places, really enjoyed it. But the part that I missed the most was designing defenses, calling plays on college football Saturdays, dialing up some mayhem, some blitzes, some pressures. That was the part personally that I wanted to get back. And, this opportunity with, Coach Brown at UNC presented itself, and it was just the right place at the right time.
What was the best football experience that you had? I know you talk about the trip up to Michigan. We were texting during that, and
Right.
because I have roots in the Big Ten region of the
Sure.
country, and you're an SEC guy, a Southern guy through and
Right.
through. But what was your favorite football experience that you had this past year that maybe you wouldn't have been able to do while coaching?
I went to Georgia versus Auburn, down in Jordan-Hare Stadium. That was a good experience. I had friends on both staffs and got to be on the sidelines for that one. So that was pretty good. Went to some NFL practices. So as a college football coach, you go through the OTAs and you get to watch them in the off season. But I had never been to an in-season NFL practice, and I went to a couple of them over the last year and a half. And that was a good experience too, just to see how it works once they get into the season. I thought it was, very informative and kind of, changed my perspective of, how they do it at the next level, getting ready for a game.
How different is NFL from college right now with that process?
Yeah, it's just because the roster's smaller, so there's a ton of walkthroughs. There's not a lot of banging during the season. You don't hit a lot. A lot of the coaching would happen in the film room. In the college football experience, it is the second you step on the field, it is constant communication, constant, whether it's getting the guys energized or making sure they know the calls or correcting, mistakes or rewarding positive things. Those practices, there was a lot less. They were letting the guys just figure it out, and then they would go correct it on tape. And I thought that was a very unique perspective. Let them kind of make some mistakes, let them experience it, let them process it on their own, and then correct it in the film room.
That's interesting because I always think of that of like that's the time to coach him up. And there's a different way to do it. You don't have to like chew a kid out if he misses a gap assignment or something like that. But there's that is definitely a difference in philosophy. The elephant in the room here is that you're replacing my guy Gene Chizik, a man that we both have great respect for.
Yep.
When the job opened up, what was your thought process? Because we talked about the premonition of that your daughter had of getting you some sneakers, getting you some Jordans for Christmas before any of this stuff happened. But, I've gotten to know you a little bit and you don't come off as like I'll stay out of the way of my agent and just let, my agent handle everything. Like what's that process when you're kind of feeling out some of these opportunities?
Well, the first part is Gene Chizik. I've had a ton of respect for him for a long, long time. And then he sent me a very, very nice text after I got the job and just really appreciated that he would reach out, because a lot of times in transition, whatever the case may be, people are in their feelings or whatever else. And I thought, hold on one second, Connor, it's the computer's doing something.
Oh, we're good. We're good. We power through. We call an audible. That's how we do it. You're still good on my end.
Okay, awesome. We got an hour and 29 minutes. We're good. Okay, before the computer shuts down. Anyway, but back to Coach Chizik, sent me a nice text, and just I've always had a great deal of respect for him, and just that gesture, was really positive. I went down the road with a couple of other places, and for whatever reason, it wasn't the right opportunity at that time. But I did I was being interviewed by Coach Brown and the staff. I was also interviewing them too, because I wanted to be in a good situation with really good people. And just even though the interviews were over Zoom, but the conversations were genuine. You could tell how much Coach Brown cares about the team, cares about the players, has really good relationships with the coaches. And that was something that I really wanted to be a part of. And, so I'm fired up that it happened.
Working with Mack sounds kind of like a dream because everything I've heard about him is that he really empowers his staff. Not a lot of coaches do that. A lot of coaches like to micromanage, and he's just not one of those guys. I'm sure your paths have crossed at some point, like in dealing with him, even though you haven't necessarily worked with him before. But what's it been like working with him so far, and somebody that's obviously accomplished a lot in the sport?
Yeah, so it goes back to he was doing broadcasting and was calling some games when I was the head coach at Temple. So I got to know him from that perspective. And obviously, watching the 30 for 30s and seeing his Hall of Fame career, you have so much respect for him. But then getting to see him in the TV interview rooms and those kind of things and building that relationship. And then we both came into the ACC as head coaches, him returning to Carolina, me going to the last place. And just the relationship that we've built over the last 5 years, and even in particular the last year and a half, like he would send me texts while I was taking the year off, just, thinking of you, whatever the case may be. And just, that kind of thing is rare. And he went out of his way to do it for me when he didn't have to. And then this opportunity presented itself, and getting here and being around him on a daily basis is just, he's better than advertised. Just the level of care that he has for his staff, the level of care that he has for his players. His wife, Sally, is in the building almost on a daily basis, eating lunch or dinner with him and interacting with the players. And he's a big texter too. So I don't know if that's a well-known fact, but he's, I'm on a couple of text threads with him or group texts, and just the engagement and the knowledge and wisdom and the level of care that he has is just wonderful to see.
Yeah, it's interesting because now, when Saban steps aside and it's kind of like, all right, college football needs a new elder statesman, and
Sure.
it's somebody like Mack or Kirk
Yep.
Ferentz at Iowa, or Kyle Whittingham is somebody that's thrown into the conversation as well. Like, do you get the sense though that he's a guy that, like, despite what people might say or look at that number, and they might look at the changing landscape of the sport, like, do you get a different impression of a guy that still has plenty of good years left? Is that kind of been your takeaway so far?
100%. He's got so much energy. He's got so much juice. He walks in the team meeting room with the guys, and just the level of engagement that he has with the guys, the energy level that he has. And the thing that's been beneficial for me is I'm so happy that I'm in the defense coordinator role, and so happy I'm in it with him, because I'm getting to see a Hall of Famer in action every day, handling this new landscape, and handle it with class, handle it with care, handle it with foresight, and from all of his years of experience. But he has a freshness about him that is just really cool.
Yeah, I've heard him on interviews before, and I'm like, golly, like, there's no reason why anybody wouldn't want to play for Mack.
And he knows every single person's name in the building. We go into high schools or whatever. He knows, or the North Carolina coaches clinic we went to 2 weeks ago. He knew everybody, and he knew them by name. And that's a skill I've not mastered yet. But hopefully, just being around him and watch him, in action, hopefully it'll rub off on me.
I'm sure it's been a little bit of an adjustment for you being in an assistant role for the first time in 8 years, even though obviously you have plenty of experience in that area, but
Sure.
you have full control of the defense. In all four of your coordinator jobs, you've had full autonomy of the defense with
Sure.
an offensive-minded head coach. How important is that for you?
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate it. And, the level of trust that, Coach Mack has, given me, I do not take that responsibility lightly. And, I think the sense in the building is everybody just wants to make Mack proud, and they want to do right by Mack. And I think that's a great quality as well, that he fosters that by his genuine nature, who he is, the fact that he allows you to do your job, and then presents things. Hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Are we doing this? Hey, we need to make sure we're doing these 5 things on defense as we build this. And, take all of that to heart, and truly appreciate it. Even though, we've had success doing what we've done defensively, just getting his perspective is awesome.
Is it possible to call plays as a head coach anymore? Like, is it possible to be a primary play caller as a head coach? Like, you've seen both sides of it, and like know
Right.
what that's like. Is in this day and age of college football, is there something to be said for how that's changed?
The last 3 years, I wasn't able to. The previous ones, when I was at Temple, I was involved a great deal. And even the first year at the last place, I was involved a great deal. But then, all the things that happened, COVID and the super seniors and all those things that were, that came into the sport, it became less and less that I could be the primary play caller, trying to figure all of those things out. So this is a nice reset for me. I get to go back to doing what I love to do, and working for somebody that gives me the ability and has a staff around us that are big time ball coaches.
I watch a lot of these HGTV shows with my wife. I'm man enough to admit it. It's the give and take. Rico to the Rescue. That's our current jam right now.
Hey.
Really good show. Really good.
Gotcha.
Show.
I don't know that one.
I'm always interested in what they feel like is the first thing that they've absolutely got to come in and fix or come in and redo.
Sure.
When you took this job and you watched UNC in this defense, and not to throw like Chizik under the bus or anything like that, but like, what was the thing that you felt like you had to come in and fix right away? And you're like, all right, that's the area that I got to start.
Well, I think one of the big, and this is a compliment to Coach Chizik, there were some games that it was really good, where the defense was playing and they were balling out and they were flying around. There's a lot of good things to build off of. And I think one of the things that I looked at when I was evaluating whether this was the right opportunity was the roster. I wanted to make sure I did a deep dive into, the returners, obviously, the guys that maybe like a Cedric Gray, number 33, that's he'll be, first 2 rounds in the NFL. The guys that were coming in to replace him, making sure they were of quality, and then the signing class and even the transfer class. And I think Coach Mack signed like 28 guys that were here in January, which is amazing. So all of those things, returning defensive line was huge for me. I mean, there's some real dudes on the front four that we've got to work with, and it goes too deep easily. And then, Power Eccles is one of the top linebackers in the league. And then Amari Campbell is the one who will step in for Cedric Gray. And the games that he played, he was phenomenal. And there's a lot of good returning talent in the secondary. Elijah Huzzy, Marcus Allen at corner are really good. And then you've got Stick Lane and Dre Boykins hopefully will be back. And Caleb Cost played really well at times that he got the shot this past season. And then we signed probably 6 of the best DBs in the country last year. All of them are sub 10-7 100-meter guys. And they have length and they have size and they've got a competitive nature to them too. So I've got to see them during the off-season workouts. And there's a lot to be excited about.
How difficult is that process, like going into this now knowing, okay, I've got to look at what I have in the spring.
Yep.
And then when that window opens, because you could have some guys that are like, hey, you know what, scheme fit is just not for me, or maybe I'm not where I'm at on the depth chart, and like evaluating that, and then also trying to balance that with, looking at guys in the portal and like, hey, this guy just hit the portal. We've got to do a quick evaluation. Like, how is that process a challenge? Like, have you kind of thought about like what's going to go into that?
Well, I think one of the biggest things in this, you've known me for a while, and the philosophy for me is I've never really had a depth chart, and Coach Mack doesn't really have a depth chart either. And playing a lot of guys has been the hallmark of what we've done defensively, all the way back, FIU, Mississippi State, Florida, play a lot of guys. And in this day and age, that's what you need to do anyway. But that's already a naturally inherent built-in part of our system and Coach Brown's system as well. And, one of the first things we did, and, I do this all the time, is watch the explosive plays. So the big passes that were given up last year, the big runs that were given up last year, and we tallied why it happened. And so we had a tick mark and we tallied them up, and that gave us the insight of what we need to fix based on those numbers and those metrics. Then we watched all of the games from last year, really the last 2 years with the staff, talked through terminology, what can we salvage as far as verbiage goes, and then we watched all the tape from when we were at Temple, when we were at Florida, and even Mississippi State, so I could teach them, what we do and how we do it and how we could merge the best of what we've done with what our skill set is of our players that are returning, so we can put the best product on the field and, kind of challenge the guys. Here's what we're going to do schematically that fits you as a group, as a collective, and then here's how we want you to play the game, and let's meet in the middle and produce a really good defense that Coach Brown and, the UNC fan base can be proud of.
You just reminded me of something that I've been wanting to ask you for a while, and for whatever reason, it's just slipped my mind. Explosive play rate, is that more valuable now than turnover rate?
I don't know that. I think it's probably some mix and some combination of both. Creating turnovers is one of the biggest things you've got to do. And one of the statistics that showed up, and I explained this to the defense last Wednesday in our unit meeting, was where we ranked on first down defense. So nationally, we were 123rd in the country in first down defense. And so what that leads to is the numbers get skewed if you're not really good at that, situation. But if you can get them in second and long, you can get them in third and long, that's when the turnovers happen. But you've got to win first down, to begin the drive. And that's a big emphasis for us. And, knock on wood, we've had a ton of success creating mayhem, creating chaos, tackles for loss, sacks. And then when you get people behind the sticks, that's when the turnovers come. And so that'll be the big point of emphasis for us, is just playing big-time, aggressive first down defense.
I imagine in the last couple months it's been kind of kicked up into overdrive, but the Minister of Mayhem just daydreams about pressure packages and stuff like that. Like that's got to be like the main thing on your mind. If you did like the word cloud, it's just pressure packages and
Yes.
stuff like that. Like, how much goes into that process of trying to figure out unique ways to be able to pressure the quarterback?
Well, I think one of the biggest things too is how you present it to the guys. So we build all of our pressure packages, and I won't say the names that we use, but we build the pressure packages into families. So if you know it fits into this family, well, we can do all kinds of sexy stuff, but it's easy for the players. Like if you do too much and you have too much verbiage and too much chaos going on and the guys can't execute it, well, then you've got a problem. Well, we try to make it where the guys can play ridiculously fast, wide of the football, play with good fundamentals and technique, but teach it in such a way that it's digestible, fun, so they want to learn it, and then they go out there and just cut it loose and play fast.
Last one for you, and it's not a question, it's just a statement of fact. Jahmyr Gibbs is the best. I think we agree on
Sure.
that. I hope you can talk him into rocking some Carolina blue just for you. Have you been able to send him some UNC swag and kind of get the ball rolling with that?
I've not. I've got a Jahmyr Gibbs roll Jahmyr roll T-shirt that he sent me. I've got his rookie card, those kind of things. But we've not had that conversation. But just so proud of him, and just the success that he's had couldn't happen to a better human being on the planet. Just ridiculously talented, but as good of a person as you'll ever want to find.
He is. It's been fun to watch him and something that I find myself rooting for. Jeff, you're the best, man. I always tell people I don't root for teams. I root for people. I am definitely rooting for you and hope you
Appreciate
just
it.
absolutely crush this opportunity, man.
Yes, sir. And we got to get a Saturday down south in Carolina blue, and I'll rock that thing.
Ooh, that's a good. Okay, I gotta float that to the bosses upstairs. Yeah, we can make that happen, man.
You got it,
Be
man.
well, man. We'll do this again soon.
Thanks, Connor.